up on the stage with you, kind of like, what the heck? She's giving me an award. And yeah, that was such a great memory. So thank you so much, Rhiannon. Hi everyone, it's so nice to meet you virtually in these crazy times. I can tell by the fact that you're involved in student activities and the fact that you've joined this webinar that you've probably got a really busy year ahead. So I'm glad that we've got this 50 minutes to take some time out and think about how you're going to balance all the different things that you've got going on, because I'm sure you want to achieve a lot this year. You're going to get even more ambitious as the conference goes on and get more ideas of what you can do. And balancing your time and learning how to manage all of your different commitments is going to be the key to your success this year. I'll just introduce myself a little bit. So I'm currently working at Rainforest Trust, which I started back in January. We are a UK charity and we work in partnership with Rainforest Trust in the US. So our mission is to permanently protect as many acres of rainforest as we can before it's too late. The UK charity is actually, so Rainforest Trust in the US has existed since 1988. You might even recognise the brand. But Rainforest Trust in the UK only started up in 2016. So we're quite a new team. We only just, as staff, we all started in January. So up until then, it was just a board of trustees trying to bring our work to the UK. Now's the most important time to be saving rainforests. It's a really crucial part to the fight against climate change. And yeah, it's a privilege to be involved in student fundraising. I think that students are going to be able to make a real difference to rainforests, which is why I'm trying to bring this charity into the student sphere, because I think you guys have got a real opportunity to make a difference against climate change. Some of you might know me from my work before at Hope for Children. I was there for 4.5 years. So whilst I was there, I was working directly with student fundraisers, and we did a survey. Perhaps unsurprisingly, we found that the main challenge our student fundraisers were facing was balancing all the different commitments that you've got going on. So whether you guys are students trying to balance your uni work, life and extracurricular activities, or whether you're a staff member who, you know, you've got things going on outside of work as well, even though this is your full-time job. And it got me to thinking that since I'd graduated and I'd had all those different plates spinning around when I was involved in Manchester right back in the day, I've actually learnt a lot of stuff that I wish I'd known earlier on. So put together some stuff from experts that I've read and watched TED Talks and things like that. And people said it was really useful and I got invited back. So please make sure you're scribbling down some notes. I've got some resources which I'll put in the chat in a bit. Links to all of these experts that I'm talking about, because they're the ones who come up with these things. None of this is my original content. It's just stuff that I wish I'd known. So we've got a lot to get through today. We're going to finish on time and we're going to have time for a Q&A at the end. So as Rhiannon said, pop your questions in the chat and she'll be moderating that conversation at the end. And then afterwards, let's go into the coffee shop. I think we've got table 1 in the coffee shop. It's a bit late for a coffee at 6 p.m. or you've been up all night, but maybe you can have a decaf. And again, the session is being recorded, just a reminder. So there's only going to be the Q&A at the end. It's the interactive bit. The rest is just going to be you guys scribbling down some notes. So if you don't want to be recorded, then pop your question in the chat and Rhiannon can read it out for you. So you don't have to worry about kind of being on record yourself. Right, without further ado, let's get started. I've got a 1-minute exercise for you. First off, I want you to list all the challenges that you think you're going to face in terms of time management this year. So this is just for yourself. Start now. You've got 1 minute to list basically where you want to use the things that you're learning today. What do you think is going to crop up for you this year, whether you're a master procrastinator, whether you've got lots of different conflicting responsibilities, you know, where do you think that you can think this is, you know, what can I give you today that's going to be a really useful talk? Whilst you do that, I'm going to try and find the chat so that I can paste all those links that I mentioned. I might have to go off the slides. Oh no, the links have linked. Sorry guys, I'll just have to copy and paste the text. Right, so that's your minute up. So whilst we're going through the talk today, have a think about all of those things that you've written down and how you can apply what we're talking about to those different areas of your year ahead. Right, another exercise now, another minute. Because the first fact that we're going to say is that all of your time is filled. You're just choosing what you're filling it with. So whether that's, you know, sitting on the bus, whether it's working, whether it's sleeping, eating, washing the dishes, scrolling through social media, you are filling all of your time with something. So I'm going to give you another minute now to try and brainstorm as many possible things that you fill your time with. Start now. You know, different aspects of your life. Where does your time go? You're probably not going to get it all down in a minute, but start now, scribble down some notes and write down every single thing that you can think that you spend time on. And again, this is just for yourself. Is it uni? Is it work? Is it family? Is it sitting on your bed staring at the wall? Especially when you come out of the shower, I always do that, sit in a towel, stare at the wall. Okay, let's say your minute's up. So take a look at that brainstorm that you've got. You actually do a lot in your time. You fit a lot into your day already. So you can fit a lot in. The key to it is balance. Now think of yourself as a tightrope walker. How long does a tightrope walker have to balance for when they're walking across a tightrope? The answer, of course, is that they have to balance the whole time for the whole tightrope. So balance isn't something that you just strike once and then you're done. It's something that you need to maintain. And look, it's okay to have a bit of a wobble, to have a couple of weeks where you think, actually, I really let work take over my life there. Or actually, I didn't do enough work that week. You need to readjust your balance and move on with that tightrope. And let me tell you that it doesn't stop when you graduate. I know that some of you guys are probably full-time staff that I'm speaking to, and you'll know this for a fact. It's just different things that you're having to balance. So learning to balance different commitments is something that you do throughout your life. Now take a look back at all those items that you brainstormed before, the things that you're spending time on. Every single one of those items, if you're giving it time, then it should be giving you value back. Think of yourself as Marie Kondo. She's the Japanese cleaning lady off of Netflix, for those of you that don't know her. Everything that you're giving time to should spark joy. So if anything is not giving you value back, then consider dropping that thing from your life. I know quite a few friends of mine have decided that the time they spend scrolling through social media doesn't give them enough value. So they've decided to delete those apps and stop spending time on social media. I'm not one of those people. I was just going through Facebook before we started, actually. But that's the first thing I'm going to invite you to do, is to think about areas of your life and why they give you value. Because also when you're spending time on them, that reminds you why you're spending time there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through the 8 different myths about time management and bust each of those myths. These are quite likely things that you've told yourself, things that you've heard other people saying. So the first one is I'm disorganized. Things like I'm disorganized, I'm always late is another one. I never get things on time, I always lose things. These things are limiting beliefs. So this is the story that you're telling yourself, and whilst you're telling yourself that story, you're acting out that story. The thing about beliefs is that they're not true. So if you replace that belief with something more empowering, then you change the story and you start acting out that more empowering story. And this doesn't just apply to time management, this applies to all limiting beliefs that you've got about yourself and about the world. And I know this can sound kind of airy-fairy and a bit wishy-washy, you know, oh, just positive thinking, positive beliefs, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, if you haven't before examined your limiting beliefs, have a think about them. Notice what kind of beliefs you have that are limiting you and try and replace them with more positive self-talk. Because it is a very powerful thing to do if that's not something that you've explored within yourself yet. Because at the end of the day, if you're telling yourself something like, I'm disorganized, I'm always late, you're giving yourself an excuse. And I've done this in the past. I used to be 10 minutes late to every single lecture. And I was like, oh, that's just me, that's just Vicky, that's how I do it. And actually I was giving myself an excuse and it wasn't good enough. Whereas if I change that belief to a more empowering belief, time management is a skill that you can learn, time management is a skill that I am learning, then I'm empowering myself to act out a better story. So, because the fact is that the way you manage time isn't part of your identity, it's not part of your personality, it's a skill. And once you've learned that for yourself, that applies to others as well. There is an interesting concept in psychology called the Pygmalion effect, which is where we act out the beliefs that other people have of us, particularly parents and particularly leader figures. So if you have that, you know, if you think that your housemate is scatty or that your colleague on RAG is a disorganized person, then you're helping them to act that out for themselves, and you're helping them to give themselves that excuse as well. So give them a more empowering belief to act out, and you can change the story for others too. Now we're going to go through some other lies now. Some of these are also limiting beliefs. So now that you are used to seeing limiting beliefs, you'll remember to learn to challenge a limiting belief. Lie number 2 is I should work at 110%. This is the lie for, first of all, the simple reason that there is no such thing as 110%. There's only 24 hours in the day, so you've only got that much time. You can't create more time. All you can do is work better in the time that you have. But even if we're talking about the working week, say you've got a 40-hour working week, and sometimes there's this culture of trying to work in extra hours. So, you'll come early or you'll stay late, you'll work during lunch, you'll work at the weekends, trying to do that extra 110% to show that you really care about your work. That's presenteeism, and it's not normally the most productive way to get things done. If you're working flat out like that all the time, then you don't have anywhere to go when you need to turn it up a gear, when you've got a big deadline coming up or a busy period or anything like that. If you're already flat out, you don't have anything extra to give. Neil Masser, who is our first expert we're going to call upon, link to him in the chat, he recommends working at 80% capacity most of the time, so that you've got that extra 20% to give when you really need to turn things up. Now, the most important reason that this belief is a fallacy is because it's so important to rest. And if you are constantly trying to push yourself to work flat out, to work in your evenings, to work in your weekends, just get your lunch breaks, then you're not looking after yourself. And yes, by all means, throw yourself into what you do, throw yourself into your passions and give your whole self to your work. I'm a big advocate for that. But don't deplete yourself, because if you don't have anything left to give, then you're not going to be any good to the mission that you're on. We all know that it's healthy to take breaks. I don't doubt that that's news to any single one of you, but how is it so difficult to actually go and do that? I think it's that conflict between wanting to change the world and really caring about what we do, and taking some time for ourselves. So the way that I overcome that conflict is to remind myself that rest time is productive. And that just reminds me to peel away from my computer when I need to, and to rest at the weekends, because I know that I'll be a more effective fundraiser, and I will actually probably save more rainforest by looking after myself. It's not selfish, it's just something that everyone needs to do. Those lines can get even more blurred when you're working from home, which of course most of us are at the moment. So do everything you can to separate out some time for yourself to rest and to replenish your stores of energy. This is number 3. I think I said the last one was number 3. Don't know why I said that. This one is number 3. The third lie is I don't have enough time. The reason this is a lie, some of you guys might have heard of a thing called Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. So if you give a task, if you decide you're going to spend all day on something, chances are you're going to spend all day on it. If you decide you're only going to spend a couple of hours on it, chances are you're going to finish in a couple of hours. So by assigning the right amount of time to something, you gain back more time. It feels like you've created time for other things. You've still only got 24 hours, but you're using those hours a lot more effectively. There's some more reading on Parkinson's law in those links as well, and how to use it. So if you've not come across that before, have a look at how to use it effectively. But to give you an example, one of my previous jobs, I used to be a primary school tutor. So for every hour that I worked in school, I got paid for an hour of planning. So if I was working 2 hours on a Wednesday, I could spend all day on Sunday planning a lesson, or I could spend 2 hours on a Sunday planning a lesson. And I would get the same results, but because I'd only given myself 2 hours, I would get that lesson planned, it would be a good lesson, and it would all go fine. But if I gave myself all day, I would spend all day and get the same result. So what you can do with Parkinson's law is you can turn it into a game. Try and work out how close you can squish your tasks, how how much you can concentrate your time, and how quickly you can get things done. Don't be a perfectionist. Let go of perfectionism. Done is better than perfect. There's another mantra for you. Now, just a quick side note. This is not an invitation to go and be one of those students that they write about in the tab who tries to finish their dissertation in 3 days, because there is a minimum amount of time you need for each task, and that's not going to be good for you either. So you need to assign the right amount of time to each task, and usually it's less than you expect. Number 4, I have to do something. Telling yourself that you have to do something eliminates the fact that you have a choice, because the truth is that you always have a choice. You're always choosing where you spend your time. And to act like you don't have a choice is to disempower yourself. So if you ever find yourself thinking that you have to, or feeling like you're acting out of obligation, ask yourself some questions. What would happen if I didn't do it? What are the other options? What do I gain by choosing to do this? And what do I lose by choosing to do this? Because you always will gain or lose things, even if all you're losing is time. And that helps you to make a more empowered decision about where you're spending your time, rather than spending your time on things out of obligation. So let's put this into context. I have to write a dissertation. Okay, ask yourself the question, what would happen if I don't? Okay, I wouldn't pass my degree. So actually what you're doing is you're choosing to do a dissertation because you've chosen to do a degree. No one's forced you to. You're choosing to do a dissertation. So now you are recognizing that it's a choice, and that you're empowering yourself, and that you are actively choosing to spend your time on that dissertation. Let's take another example. I have to send out a newsletter each week. Well, ask yourself a question, what are the other options? Could you send out a fortnightly newsletter? Could you send out a monthly newsletter? So you could change it to, I'm choosing to send out a fortnightly newsletter. Fantastic, you've just saved yourself that time every single week, and you can spend that time on something more valuable, whatever that more valuable thing might be. So stop acting out of obligation and empower yourself to make a choice every single time you're choosing to spend your time on something. You are making that choice. Now, how this works in practice when you're working with other people, no man is an island, you're always working with other people, is that you have to learn to say no to things and to value your time rather than acting out of, I have to do this because such and such says I have to. And saying no is hard, especially when you're a nice person. But don't become a yes person. Learn how to say no. One of the experts that we're drawing on in the comments is a woman called Kim Scott. She's a Silicon Valley boss lady who's worked at Twitter, she's worked at Google, she's worked at all those kind of Silicon Valley techie places. And she came up with a concept called radical candor. So candor, C-A-N-D-O-R, she's American, you see. A way of being candid, being honest with people, that she says is radical, because it's a way of being honest without being a, I was going to swear there, without being a not nice person, in case any of you have children in the room. And the basic concept behind it is that if you're going to be honest with someone, you need to do two things. You need to be direct about your thoughts, challenge them directly. And the second thing is that you need to care personally about that person and about your shared goals. So if you struggle to say no, and if you struggle to be honest with people about where you can spend your time, or about other things as well, take a look at, there's a video there, it's only 20 minutes long, and it's a lot more about leadership and communication in general. So it's quite an applicable skill, but yeah, radical candor, give it a go. It's fantastic, and Kim is an awesome person. She's so I gave you 2 links for Kim actually. One of them is a 20-minute talk, which if you want to learn radical candor, listen to that talk. The second one is her blog, which has loads of useful posts, but the specific post that I've linked to is a very useful post for leaders. It's not really about time management, it's more about leadership. But if you are going to be a manager this year, take a look at Kim's blog post, which would be a very useful way to think about management. Bit of a teaser there for you. Number 5, my to-do list is never ending. Who said this? I've said this so many times, as recently as last week. I can't say I'm perfect. If you get this feeling that your to-do list is never ending, that it's ruling your life, that you don't even know what's on your to-do list, then you need to screw your to-do list up and throw it out the window, because it's not serving you well. It's not sparking joy, guys. Throw it away. Your to-do list is a tool. It should serve a purpose, and it should help you get the job done. If it's not working, then you're using the wrong tool and you need to replace it. So would you use a hammer to cut a piece of wood? I wouldn't, because I know what tools are what. Yeah. Would you use a saw to drive a nail into the wall? No, you wouldn't. You need 2 different tools for 2 different things. So we're going to go back to Neil Masser this time. He's our expert who's going to help us here. He says that you need 2 different lists. That's 4, that's 2. 2 different lists. He says you've got your big list and your today list. So your big list is where you keep track of everything that you need to do. If you're a student, I would recommend actually your big list should include everything. So it should include uni, it should include RAG or student television or student paper, student media, whatever extracurricular stuff you have going on. It should include work, it should include job applications, buying your mum's birthday present, calling your grandma. Every single thing you need to do should be on your big list, and it should have a deadline next to it. That allows you to keep track of what's coming up, what's needed from you, what you need from other people. Then you've got your today list, which is where you pull down the things from your big list every day and decide, okay, I've got however many minutes today, these are the things I'm going to tackle. If you work at a charity, Neil does free charity training. It's 3 hours, usually in the afternoon. And for me, I went along for this 3 hours. I've definitely saved a lot more than 3 hours by going along to Neil's training. It's called Work Smarter, Not Harder, the classic adage. I don't know if he actually came up with that slogan or if he's just using it. But yeah, if you work for a charity, again, link in the, I don't know which side it is, link there to the free charity training that Neil does. I really hope he still does it. The link still worked, but I didn't actually look at what was on the page. So you've got your big list, and now you've got your today list. So on your today list, first of all, you start off by working out what you've got on today and where you're spending your time. How many minutes have you got free? Usually in blocks of like 5 minutes. And then what do you need to achieve? How long will each of those things take? The reason that your to-do list generally goes awry is because you don't put enough time in for contingency and interruptions. If you're working an 8-hour day, you probably want to leave about 70 to 90 minutes of contingency time. So that's time for interruptions, that's time for tasks that crop up that need doing by today but you haven't planned them. That's time for answering the phone, and if your travel overruns, all of that is your contingency time. Also, what you should be including in your daily list is meetings, lectures, travel time, breaks, recurring tasks like checking your emails or any other recurring tasks that you have each day. For me, I've got logging all my emails up on our database. It's a recurring task as well. Estimate how long each task is going to take. And then as you go through your day, record how long each task takes as well. And that will help you to get better at estimating the time. And that will also help you to get better at using Parkinson's law to really squeeze down and treat those deadlines like you absolutely need to meet them. I need to do this task in 15 minutes. You will get it done in 15 minutes. Now, the other thing that can give you this feeling of a never-ending to-do list, or that feeling of a bit of chaos around what you need to do, is your email inbox. If you've never thought about your email habits before, then you need to start thinking about them now. And get into good habits before September, when everything's going to go crazy, when term's going to start again. Get into good email habits before then. One of the If you've never thought of this before, there's a 2.5-minute video in the resources to a concept called inbox zero. And for me, this is the one single thing that's made me feel more in control of my workload ever since I graduated. So your inbox should not be used as a storage place for emails. It should not be used as a to-do list. Your inbox is simply for emails that you haven't read yet. Every time you go into your inbox, you're aiming to empty it. You open an email, you either deal with it then and there, or you put it on your to-do list and you file it away. There's a little more to it than that, but that's the broad concept of inbox zero, is that the only emails in your inbox are the ones that you haven't read yet. And once you've read them, you're either dealing with it straight away, or you're dealing with it later, and you know that you will get to it later because your to-do list covers everything. Nothing's going to fall through the gaps. All right, that was a long one, but that was one of the ones that people found most helpful last time. Number 6, I don't know where to start. Okay, so I've got my big list, I've got my to-do list. What do I do now? It's so easy to then just like start procrastinating again and think, right, I'm on top of this. You know, it's all on my big list. It'll all get taken care of. I'm going to go have a cup of tea, watch some telly, etc. One of the most popular time management books out there is one called Eat That Frog. If you've heard of it before, you're probably smiling. If you haven't heard of it before, you probably thought that I just had some kind of weird stroke, but I promise it is a real thing. So the concept is, imagine that you've got to eat a frog today. You've got 2 choices. You can either eat it first thing, and then you know that the rest of your day is only uphill from there because you've just eaten a live frog. Or you can leave it, and it can sit and stare at you all day. You can spend all day imagining eating it, thinking about how you're going to eat it. And by the time you get round to eating it, it's so big and so scary, and that frog has been staring at you all day, that you put it off again until the next day. And that's how procrastination happens. So the concept of eating that frog is starting with the task that you're most likely to procrastinate on. And actually get that done before you even start your emails. That's a good way to claim ownership of your time, because your emails is other people wanting your time. Whereas your frog is the task that you know is going to get you to your goals. So how do you know what your frogs are? You know what your goals are, first of all, know what you want to achieve, know what your priorities are, and then use the 80-20 principle. This is the principle, it applies to loads and loads of stuff, but that 80% of your results come from 20% of your time. So your frogs are that 20%, the really important stuff. So for me as a fundraiser, my frogs are filling out funding applications, meeting with donors, typing out a really great funding appeal letter. Those are my 20% of really, really valuable tasks that will get 80% of my results. Then you start with your frog, like I say, before you've even opened your emails, especially if it's a task that you're going to procrastinate on. But I'm not in the mood to eat a frog. Well, the reason this is a lie is because no one else is in control of your mood except for you. You're in control of your mind and therefore in control of your emotions. Now, a quick side note before we go any further. There's a whole separate mental health conversation that we're not going to get into, but if you genuinely don't feel in control of your thoughts and your emotions, then that's absolutely okay. I would recommend you look at Student Minds or Mind website and have a look into that for yourself. I'm sorry if you really don't feel in control. I'm talking about the majority of day-to-day emotions here that, when you're sat at your desk and you're feeling sluggish and you're not feeling in the mood, that these are the ones I'm talking about, the more trivial stuff and the mental health angle of things. So broadly speaking, you are in control of your mind and therefore you're in control of your emotions and your mood. So again, to act like you're not is to disempower yourself. So stop pretending that your emotions, these things that are happening to you, they're within you, they're part of you, and you have control. We work best when we're in a state called flow, peak performance state. You know that state when you're in the zone where you're getting everything done, you're hitting it out the park, Things are generally happening a bit faster than they usually were. So usually it's the times if you're typing, for example, when you're not checking your grammar as you go, your thoughts are flowing straight onto the page. You can check your grammar later. So find a way to get into that peak performance state when you need it and to access that state. There are apps on computers that can shut down all distractions so that you can really zone in. I don't know the names of them, but literally Google is something like typewriter, cold turkey typewriter or something. You student publishing people will definitely know more about that than me. But the fact is that some of your frogs, some of your most important tasks are just not that fun, and they're just tasks that you never feel like it. Or sometimes, you know, you're just having an off week, but you need to get on with it. If you're a parent, you know this feeling, and we've all done it at some point in our lives where you just suck it up and you just get on with it. I always do this. I always imply that I'm a parent. I'm not a parent. I always do this. But yeah, if you are a parent, congrats to you. I'm sure there are many, many times where you've not felt like doing something, but you've got yourself out of bed anyway and, you know, responded to your kid crying or whatever it is. So sometimes you just need to stop succumbing to the feelings, stop giving yourself an excuse and do it. And Mel Robbins, our next expert, has a rule on how you can break that cycle. She calls it the 5-second rule, which is where in your head you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it activates your prefrontal cortex. It becomes an anchor, and you get on with whatever it is that you've been putting off. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you do it, whatever it is that you need to do. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out of bed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, pick up the phone. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go out for a run. Whatever it is that you know you need to do, use the 5-second rule. People say that it's really helped them since last time we did this talk, just to give themselves those 5 seconds to go, you know what, I am going to do this. I am going to achieve my results. Let's go for it. So check out what Mel has to say for some more information if that sounds like something that you want to start adopting yourself. Number 8, so this is the final one that we're going to touch on before we do the Q&A. Remember, if you have any questions, pop them up in the chat, and Rhiannon will be moderating those and keeping track of those as they come in. So our final one is, I don't know how I'm going to fit it all in. And I hope that so far you've felt that some of these concepts will help you to feel more in control. But here are a few more things that you might want to, new habits that you might want to get into this year. Some of these you may well have heard of, but we're just going to summarize each one for those that haven't. First one is the Pomodoro technique, which is all about breaking work into intervals. So it's typically about 25 minutes per interval. And in that 25 minutes, you really focus and zone in on one task. So this is the time when you're hopefully getting into your flow, when you can use apps like the Cold Turkey Writing app. It's definitely not called that. I'm just making it up. Probably terrible marketing, and their legal team are going to be on to me soon. But people say it's useful. So you break your work into those intervals, typically about 25 minutes, but whatever works best for you. And then those intervals are separated by short breaks. That's the Pomodoro technique. Every single one of these has a link somewhere in the description. Time blocks, Parkinson's law. We've been over that one already. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion. Squeeze your work, squeeze how much time you're giving yourself, and you will be able to get the same amount done in a much shorter period of time, as long as you treat those deadlines as deadlines. Time blocks. This isn't one I use, but I know a lot of people find it really useful. You look ahead at your week, and once you've used Parkinson's law to squeeze your task down, you decide, okay, it's going to take me 45 minutes. And then you decide where about in your week that 45 minutes is going to be. So it could be Wednesday morning at 11 o'clock, and you put that in your calendar, and you treat it like a meeting. Like you don't schedule anything on top of that. You treat it like a high priority meeting. You can color code your time blocks, and it's worth going back as you go along, making sure that you adjust those time blocks so that your calendar in the past reflects what actually happened, so that you can look back at how your week has been and how much time you spent on different things. Productivity Ninja. This is one by a man called Graham Alcott. Link there, right there. It's got 9 different characteristics of what he calls a productivity ninja. This is one I haven't actually read because I only heard about it recently, but it sounds really useful. And it sounds like he's saying a lot of the stuff that the other experts have said that we've brought up. So I can't recommend Graham's one because I haven't read it, but he mentions about how to say no. He talks about being mindful, about being flexible when things come up. So that could be a good like all-rounder to read if that's something you're interested in. Eat That Frog. Brian Tracy wrote a book about eating that frog, which is, like I say, probably the most famous book that's out there. It's got 21 different tips to avoid procrastination and get more out of your time. It's also available in audiobook. I will say I listen to the audiobook. I like listening to audiobooks when I'm like on the train or doing the dishes or things like that. The narration is quite American, we'll put it like that. But yeah, if you like audiobooks, it's available on an audiobook. I'll circle back to that in a second. Productivity journal, that's where you record where your time has gone. So like we were saying about before, evening recording impromptu things or things that overran, and that means that you can look back and see what times you're most productive, what times you're most likely to get interrupted. It might in future make your decisions on what days you want to go into the office. If you know you're really going to get interrupted on a Tuesday, then maybe your Monday is a time for like working from home and really focusing on your work, and then on Tuesday is the day that you get interrupted and things go haywire. The Eisenhower matrix is the matrix between urgency and importance. So how important, so it's got 4 different quadrants like this, and you've got tasks that are urgent and important, urgent but not important, important but not urgent, and neither urgent nor important, which you've put as probably something that's come up for you before. Be aware of the urgency bias, that people might say that a task is urgent because they think you're going to do it quicker, but it might not be. So what you might be thinking now, after I've mentioned all these links and after I've talked about all these different concepts you can learn about, is, right, Vicky, I came here because I've got a lot on this year, and now you want me to spend time learning about time management? Well, in the same way that I said before, how I spent 3 hours at Neil's training and it saved me a lot more than 3 hours, learning about time management is an investment. So find time efficient ways to do it, block out time for personal development, and make time management your first thing that you're going to develop within yourself, because it will make everything else easier. Think about things like listening to a TED talk on your coffee break, or listening to an audiobook whilst you're on the bus. If audiobooks can be quite expensive, but there's an app called Libby, Libby, which is where it's linked to your local library. So you can take audiobooks out in the same way that you take a book out from the library. Very, very useful. YouTube is an absolute goldmine. It's the second biggest search engine in the world now. So all the information on there, pretty much every single concept that I've talked about today, if you search it on YouTube, the first few videos that come up will be useful. And like I say, make some time for personal development, because what's the point in being at uni if you're not developing as a person? Right, so quickly to summarise before we do the Q&A, what I want you to remember and what I want you to take away from today is remembering to make conscious decisions on where you spend your time. And you need to do this by knowing what you want to achieve, then breaking it down into manageable chunks, and then making it happen. That's so easy when I say it like that, right? Appreciate the variety. Now that you are making choices about what you spend your time on, every single thing you spend your time on is adding value to your life in some way, no matter how boring it might be. So appreciate that variety, and appreciate that, you know, this is a great time of life to be in. Please, please, please take care of yourself, because nothing is worth not taking care of yourself for. Nothing's worth it. And finally, let go of perfectionism. Remind yourself that done is better than perfect, and allow yourself to make mistakes, because now is the time to be making mistakes and to be learning. So let's have a go of the Q&A, Rhiannon.
That was a really good talk. I've written so many notes. We've got a couple of questions. Somebody's asked, are there any recommendations for people who've just graduated and have less clear tasks and deadlines to match?
Oh, I see. So the kind of people who graduated in a job hunting, etc., or taking a gap year and things. I think the first thing that you want to know is what your goals are. Maybe for this year, maybe for the next 6 months, for the rest of 2020, something like that. What do you want to achieve? Don't put loads of pressure on yourself. When you talk about goal setting, especially when you're not working or you're not at uni, it can feel like adding extra pressure when you don't need it. But your goals should be things that you genuinely want to achieve. And yes, they can be ambitious. Please make them ambitious. But know what you want to achieve, and then have a think about what will be your most valuable way to achieve that. If you're not sure what your goals are, take a look at the Japanese concept of ikigai. I probably butchered that pronunciation. It's Ikigai. Ikigai. Maybe if you just search Ikigai in Google, it'll probably bring it up, to be fair. Which is to do with exploring your talents, your passions, things you can get paid for. And it's basically like a big Venn diagram of, what are your passions, what are your talents, what are the things that you can make a career out of, and you explore that within yourself and decide what your goals are going to be. So take a look at Ikigai, decide what your goals are, and then have a think about how you're going to achieve them. Sorry, I accidentally swore at you.
Fine, no offense taken. Do you have any tips on trying to have non-confrontational conversations with people to get them to do something you need them to as part of a bigger team?
That's a really good question. Watch the video from Kim Scott. She's the Radical Candor video. It's all about that, about how to be honest with people in a non-confrontational way. Because that can be scary for two reasons. First of all, maybe you're the kind of person who just likes to be direct and be honest and is sometimes misinterpreted. Or maybe you're the kind of person who struggles to be direct with people because you want to be nice. So yeah, Kim has got some brilliant advice on how to balance those two things. If the video doesn't help, her blog will help. Her blog has an answer to every question under the sun.
How would you recommend managing time if a lot of people are often trying to take your time up with meetings, etc.?
I think this sounds like something that's really true for people who work in SUs as well, because you're actually spread quite thinly, even though your role is quite specific. It sounds like you guys are, I've never worked in an SU myself, but it seems that even though you've got that one specific role, you are actually spread quite thinly across different stuff. Be honest with people about what your priorities are. Sometimes it's a case of, especially if it's your line manager who's trying to take up your time, saying, okay, if I do this, then something's got to give. So here are my other priorities. What do you want me to do this instead of? And being honest that I've only got X hours in this day. This is what I planned. If to me these are the priorities, but if you think that this is more of a priority, what should I be not doing? Having a good relationship with, especially in a professional setting, having a good relationship with your direct line manager will make this kind of thing easier, because if it's someone else in the team who is taking up your time, whether it's someone above your manager or it's someone kind of within the wider team, your line manager should be the one who helps you to overcome those challenges and gives you A, advice, and B, kind of help externally to overcome those challenges. So if you don't have a good relationship with your line manager, then work on that relationship first. Have a look at Kim's blog again, because that's all about leadership and relationships between line managers and line reports. Work on that relationship first so that they're able to support you properly.
So someone says, hi Vicky, I'm curious about the idea all your time should spark joy. Does all your work spark joy, and what happens if you have a task that doesn't?
Yeah, it's funny. I guess joy is less of a word than value, even if it because there are some things that are just boring as all hell. Yeah, no, nothing doesn't always spark joy. But if you know the value behind it, and if you know why you're doing it, then as boring as it is, you remind yourself why you're doing it, and you're still able to get your bum out of bed and get on with it during the day.
All of the questions that have been submitted so far.
Oh, brilliant. We're making good time. This is a good time.
Excellent.
Does anyone else have any other ones that they want to put in the chat before we wrap up? Can't tell if anyone's typing. Is anyone typing?
No, not yet. Excellent time management. You've finished perfectly on time.
I was running there as well. I must have talked really fast. So, you know, like I say, none of this is my stuff. It's all from the people who know a lot more than me and who come up with this stuff. But it's some good stuff. So I hope you've been taking notes, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to go over to the coffee shop. So please come and join me and we can have a more face-to-face interactive chat there. Thank you so much, Rhiannon, for hosting. But you guys are going to go off and achieve some amazing things this year, whether you're in your volunteering sectors, RAG sectors, student media, whatever else it is that you're running this year. It's going to be an interesting year, and it's going to be a year that you look back on. Regardless of what you're doing, it's going to be a year that you look back on, and hopefully we'll smile, and hopefully we'll think, yeah, I made a difference. So get out there and go do it. Thanks.
Thank you.